Hey guys, it's Kyle from Stall Agronomy, and I'm going to try to do this almost daily. It probably won't work out 100% just because it's spring and who knows when I'm going to have time to do this. But let's do an Agronomist vlog, quick update, just kind of what we did in the last few days of scouting. I was looking at a lot of winter wheat lately, and winter wheat stands are kind of all over the board. Some of my earlier stands I've been looking at, let's say they were planted in mid to late September. They got like 4 or 5 inches of rainfall on them within a week or so after they got planted. Those stands actually don't look too bad. Tiller counts pretty decent. Plant counts were marginal to halfway good. I got a lot of fields that were kind of iffy. And we actually had some spots that got replanted into. That stuff's coming up, but hasn't quite tillered yet. So got some guys really wanting to spray chemicals on them, and we're kind of holding off a little bit just for that instance. So my later stands of winter wheat that I looked at for consultants, they look actually pretty decent. I looked at a stand on Saturday, and there's more plants coming up now than there were last fall or even a month ago. So those stands are starting to thicken up. Still too early to make a call on them. I know, and it's like the first week of April. Let's say the first full week of April, and it's still pretty early yet. So we're kind of still on a waiting game on those. There's a lot of guys out doing alfalfa seeding, which is actually a pretty decent thing to do. Ground conditions aren't great. It seems like it's fairly wet underneath. It looks really dry on top in a lot of areas. Once you get any kind of residue on the surface, it's staying pretty wet underneath. I had a few guys go out and try to do some chisel plowing or any kind of heavier tillage, and that stuff's bringing up big chunks. My best advice, avoid it if you can. I know there's some instances that we had guys that just couldn't avoid it and had to do it. It's just going to make some big lumps and bricks we're going to have to deal with in a couple weeks. As far as everything else goes, I mean, right now, the best thing to do is work on equipment, work on fence lines, try to occupy your time a little bit. There are some soybeans going in the ground, some ultra early trials going in, and I think trials are a good idea. Would I be planting a few hundred acres? I don't think so, but there's going to be a couple of guys that have probably a couple hundred acres here in by the end of the week. Current forecast, a lot of guys are a little worried about because there's rainfall in the forecast. Obviously, last year was a weather anomaly, and we're really kind of dealing with the aftermath of that. We all kind of want to remember 2020 or 2019 and use that as a norm, and it wasn't a norm, so you got to kind of remember that. So there are a lot of people, not necessarily around here yet, but you get to the south. I saw pretty much every agronomist I follow on Twitter telling guys to be very, very careful, don't make bad decisions. There's corn getting socked in central Illinois and northern Illinois, and their early planting date isn't here yet for a lot of those guys. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot of people planting corn that maybe shouldn't be, but we'll see what happens. I just think a lot of guys are trying to remember last year and saying, I planted in the mud last year and it turned out okay. I'm going to plant earlier and I'll gain some yield that way, and if I can get it in the ground, it's going to turn out just fine. Not really the case. I mean, we got to kind of have to go on what we know and what we've proved over the years. So there's quite a few people that shouldn't be planting that are, and there's some pretty marginal field conditions in a lot of areas that are getting planted into. So when we get another week or two from here, we start getting mid-April and we want to start planting in our area, we need to kind of remember that. It's still agronomically planting in the mud, working wet ground to try to dry it out is the last thing you want to do in April. The heaviest compaction we're going to put in is right now. Ground conditions coming out of winter are always really soft. It's wet underneath. We got a lot of tillage equipment that's fairly heavy yet. And we're going to go in and smear the ground and put some heavy compaction with tractors and planters, and you really got to be careful. And I think it's just going to be a little bit of patience this year. It's going to be kind of hard to come by. Nobody's getting really excited about planting $3 corn, and in some instances too something corn with a 2 in front of it. But yeah, and there's a lot of talk about switching to beans from corn. Especially yesterday, I had quite a few conversations about that. Keep that in mind, that everyone else is having that idea. I put this in our newsletter we send out to our clients. A lot of people are having this idea. A lot of people think the same thing you're thinking. When you're going to change a lot of acres to beans, everybody else is doing it. We can see a large acre flip in beans from corn. I know the corn market looks bad. It looks bad in the future, but don't exacerbate that and start planting a bunch of beans and then we start ruining the bean market. I know there's some hope in the bean market, but if we plant 90-some million acres of soybeans, we're going to erase a lot of that, or at least a chunk of it. So I think when you make acre switches, make minor ones or make ones that make sense, but at the same time, don't go whole hog. And then if you're going to do that, make sure you have a marketing plan. Have some kind of plan in place, especially on corn. If you think corn price is going to go down, then why not sell some corn right now? Or do some kind of hedge, do something. Talk to somebody who actually knows what the heck they're talking about and not just the agronomist. But work with somebody that you know and try to make a good decision that way. So that's a quick update of what's kind of going on, what I saw yesterday. Today's plan is some alfalfa. Probably going to be looking at some corn ground just to kind of see what conditions we're in. It's supposed to be 70 degrees today, so I'm going to be rocking a t-shirt. But hopefully you guys make some good decisions in the next few days. I know the weather forecast is not great, but looking at the amount of rain that are coming does not equate to last year. And you got to remember the last 2 years we've had a lot of snow in April, and even with the way that the temperatures are going, we aren't kind of in that ball game of having a bunch of snow. So don't freak out just yet. We got plenty of time, but at the same time, we'll have to make some informed decisions. So be safe. Hopefully everybody has a good day. I'll catch you guys maybe tomorrow, probably the day after.